Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Type 2. I'm Tiara, and I'm the director of Beyond Type 2. I'm excited to chat with a member of our community, Heather, about how insulin has improved her quality of life. I'll let Heather introduce herself, and then we'll jump right into it. Hi, Heather. Would you mind
Hi,
introducing to our audience?
hello. My name's Heather. I just briefly, I'll just say I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in 2016. It's been an experience so far.
I hear that. I was diagnosed with diabetes in 2017, and it's definitely an interesting experience when you've been managing it for a little while. So let's talk about your diagnosis in back in 2016. What were some of the signs and symptoms that you noticed?
Um, well, um, Besides already knowing that it was kind of in my family, like, and it goes way back, so it was always on the radar, but the actual like diagnosis, I was getting symptoms like, urination a lot during the night, excessive thirst that I couldn't quench. Then just getting sick a lot. A lot of infections were the big ones.
Yeah, those are definitely some telltale signs of diabetes. And did diabetes run in your family? Did you have a family history of it?
Yeah, I mean, I learned it goes as far back as like my great grandmother.
Mhm.
So,
Okay. And what were you put on initially? What type of medication did your doctor prescribe? Were you put on insulin immediately?
no, I went on metformin initially, and had a lot of, dealt with a lot of the side effects that I see a lot of people deal with and struggle with. But luckily for me, it kind of subsided after a few months. It was a struggle at first because I remember telling my doctor, I said, this is making me late for work, for appointments. Like I'm not getting where I need to be because I'm having, side effects. But it did get better. And then, once we increased the dosage, it kind of happened again. But again, it would subside for me, which I was thankful for. So,
Yeah. And, I've heard that as well when it comes to metformin, like it does get a little better. When you do change the dosages, sometimes, you can experience some side effects, but they improve over time. Um, so when were you um, prescribed insulin? And at that time, like what were your thoughts around using insulin to manage type 2 diabetes?
well, I started insulin about around maybe September of 2021, so a little over a year ago. And that was actually like my decision, because my doctor had been bringing it up for a couple years, but I kept saying, no, I'm not ready for that. I think because I had like, it was stigmatized in my own head just from like what I'd hear from people and that it was a last resort sort of thing. But I got to a point where I didn't agree with that anymore. Because I guess my thought process changed where I said, if this could help with bringing my A1C down, then it's going to help keep away long, like effects that could be long term and not go away, and damage my body even more. And I just thought, well, this could actually help keep that from happening. And so I said, that's a totally different way of thinking about it. And I said, it's a good thing. I don't want to cause permanent damage to my body so early, where if this can maybe push, keep that from happening, then I'm going to do that. So,
That's incredible, and that's a great way of thinking about that. I heard a lot of people who think that because they start insulin, that means that they're bad at diabetes management. And I love that you said that it was your decision because you're looking at the long haul and knowing that insulin could actually help you, and as you said, kind of like delay or prevent complications until till way later down the road. So that's a very empowering thing that you said. So when you started on insulin, what were some changes that you noticed? Like what were some like improvements to your overall quality of life that you noticed?
well, I mean, I definitely noticed that, my fasting blood sugars were coming down. And because I do check, I mean, I definitely check regularly every morning, but now I check a little more often throughout the day. Um, but definitely seeing my numbers improve, and it did make me like physically feel better. And And then even mentally a little bit too. And I mean, at first it was hard because I mean, it did kind of change my appetite a little bit. And, because I was also going through, I'm also going through recovery for an eating disorder too. So it was really hard because I was already learning hunger and fullness cues and getting the hang of it. And then the insulin did kind of change that at first, but it's just, I said, it'll be fine. I can adjust because it's going to help, so it physically made me feel a lot better though. Like sleeping is definitely better. Sleeping through the night is great. So
That's that aspect of sleep, like especially when your blood sugars um are kind of stabilizing, you're in there where you want them to be, you do notice that you may have like a little bit more energy to do things. Like when you're running high all the time, you feel sometimes lethargic and sluggish. And like you said, you mentioned sleep, which improves as well. I also want to like kind of dig a little bit more into the mental aspect. And you mentioned that you're also recovering from an eating disorder. How has insulin, well, it's going to insulin sort of impacted your relationship with food? Like, so you mentioned that you were learning more about your hunger cues and things like that. How has insulin like impacted that?
I mean, this year I started on a different kind of insulin and another medication that I inject, and it did change my appetite significantly because I did talk to my doctor, and he said that will happen. And um, at first, it threw me off a lot with the hunger and fullness cues because it changed significantly. Like as I didn't feel as hungry all the time, and which I mean, I'm like, I know that's good, but it was such a drastic shift for me that at first I was scared. I'm like, I don't want to, I can't do this. But then I'm like, no, just you'll still pay attention to your hunger and fullness cues. It's just going to shift. It's going to be a little different. And it has improved a lot where I still feel hungry, but so that's helped a lot too, I think now. But at first I was like, I don't want to do this, because it's changing. But I think a lot of the excessive hunger was from the higher blood sugars. I learned that later. So it's okay, Um, but now like I do have to pay more attention to lows because if I haven't eaten enough throughout the day, I will go low, and that's happened. And I'm not used to that, and I don't always feel like symptoms from it. So I'm checking constantly to make sure that I'm okay before I like go about my day. So
And how do you treat your lows? Did your doctors give you education on hypoglycemia, on how to treat a low?
well, I was seeing a diabetic educator temporarily, and she upfront told me right away, like because of the different medications I'm on, that could happen. And so she said, get glucose tablets to keep on hand. And she said she had me write on there how many to take, like 3 to 4, and I have done that. And and then I try to keep snacks with me too, and because I don't always keep um like like because I know like certain drinks will help it a lot quicker, but I don't keep that on hand because I won't be able to like keep it for very long. So the glucose tablets are really handy for me, and I try to keep some like candy once in a while around or snacks. So
That's the same. I usually keep like fruit snacks or like some or like a Mike's thing just in case if I go low. So the next thing I'm gonna ask is about the struggles that someone may have, because we have a lot of people who follow us here at Beyond Type 2 who read our content, especially our insulin content, and they may ask questions about like, well, I am a little nervous to start insulin. I may not feel as confident in my diabetes journey. And but Heather, hearing stories like yours, it can be really inspirational to someone. What would you say to someone who was kind of like maybe going through a tough time and could probably use some words of wisdom or inspiring words from someone like you?
um well, I think the big thing for me is like never blame yourself for any of it because I did for a long time, and it kept me from like getting into a better place, like to feel better. And because I blame myself, I thought, well, I don't deserve to get better or to even like, because I was in denial too for a long time. So like, it's never your fault. there, I think all of that gets stigmatized, thinking that like, we just aren't, doing the right things. I mean, some people have said, you're lazy, your lifestyle's not. And that, I mean, there's a lot of other roles that, play into that. You know, it's not all that, and, so that helped a lot to just not, blame myself. And then, I think having people to talk to about it, like, I mean, my doctor is just a very understanding person, and he's very thorough, and he's supportive, because it helped me to keep in mind it's between me and him. And it's, it has to do with like my health, and it's my choice, just to like really empower myself to say this is my decision. And other people have their opinions and they can share them. That's great. I always appreciate people's opinions, but ultimately it's still my decision. And to really, if get into a place to really like feel empowered by that, it does help a lot.
Yes, I love that. I love, like, it's your health, it's your decision. I am a big proponent of saying something like you were the number one person on your healthcare team. So you have to feel empowered, because no one can empower you like you can empower yourself at the end of the day. So thank you so much for sharing that. And Heather, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I love talking to people in our community, because these stories matter. You never know who is watching you and being inspired by you. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks to everyone for watching. Please go follow Heather on Instagram. Her information will be below. And if you have any other questions about insulin management, please go to our website, beyondtype2.org, where you'll find information on the different types of insulin. If you're someone that's already on it and you're trying to learn how to dose it with carbs, we have information on that as well. And we have other stories from people with type 2 diabetes who are living their best life while on insulin as well. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.